Hello, and thanks so much for joining us on this week's Okcoin Live. My name is Natalie Brunell, and I have the honor of being this week's fill in host. Super excited because my guest is Anita Posch. She is a Bitcoin advocate, an educator, a podcaster, author, and she is the founder of Bitcoin for Fairness. So, first of all, Anita, thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you very much for the invitation, Natalie.
Well, I know that we're going to get a chance to do a live Coin Stories interview when we head to Miami for the big Bitcoin conference in a couple weeks, but let's give people a little bit of a preview. I want to hear more about your background because I know everyone's journey into Bitcoin is so fascinating. Everyone has sort of a different story. So, can you offer just a little bit of a narrative on how you came to Bitcoin?
Yes, of course. I love to. It's exactly almost 5 years today. It was in April 2017 when I heard a talk held by a woman, by Shermin Foschinger in Vienna about Bitcoin and open blockchains. And she was talking about the positive impact it can have on society and on the economy and on the world in general. And I was, yeah, baffled. It was like it made click, and I realized, wow, that's such an interesting and amazing technology. I want to be a part of that. And the situation was that a year before, I was starting to look for new ideas, new things I want to do in my life professionally, and also from the personal perspective, what is interesting to me. And I realized very fast that Bitcoin is the topic that I want to work on in the future, and I managed like to get into it full time in about 1 or 2 years. And it's basically I found my ikigai with Bitcoin.
Isn't it amazing how you could go from not really understanding or knowing anything about Bitcoin to just really diving deep down the rabbit hole and all of a sudden you transform your whole life and career? Because that's what I did too.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it goes fast, but it takes a time, I think. So to really understand it, it took me, I think, a year or two, and still I don't understand everything. There's so much new to learn all the time, but that's also what I find fascinating. I was always interested in new technologies, in things that can bring humanity forward, and in the future, in building the future. And Bitcoin gave me the possibility to do so.
And are you originally from Austria? And what were you doing before Bitcoin? What was your career?
Yes, I'm from Austria, and actually, I studied urban planning. So I'm an urban planner. But as soon as I finished my studies in 1997, yes, I'm that age, uh, I found the internet. So I got my first email account in 1997, and I think I made my first HTML website in the same year. And I was sold for the idea of the internet, like the possibility to communicate with people all over the world for free, basically, um, really shook me in a way. I had an idea, but I couldn't say what it is, but I knew that it will change the world, and I wanted to be a part of it. And so I did another education as a multimedia producer and learned how to code and things like that. And then I started off as a web designer in 1999, I think. And yeah, so since then, I have been doing a lot of work in the web economy, like e-commerce space and things like that. So I understand databases, the internet, and things like that. And so it was the basis for getting into Bitcoin.
Okay. So, what was it about Bitcoin where maybe you had sort of an aha moment that this could really transform the future and you wanted to pivot and help educate others about it to help adoption?
The aha moment. I think there were a lot of aha moments. I can remember one of the aha moments was also how Bitcoin is mined, so how it is issued, what mining is, and then when I realized, oh, the miners get Bitcoin as an incentive to mine, as a price, basically. I was just like, oh wow, and also how everything is set up. It's like an organism that is self-regulating, and I thought from the technology side and from the idea that Satoshi Nakamoto has put inside, like being an alternative to a financial system that has had a great breakdown in 2008 and 2009, where Occupy Wall Street came about, and I was drawn to these developments in that days. So when I realized that this could be a solution, or just if it's just an alternative, it's a big alternative and a big possibility. And I always also had a sense for unfairness and fairness. So fairness is basically something my grandmother educated me about, how fairness helps us and how it frees us from how shall I say, nah, when people disagree, if you're not fair to your children, like one child gets more than the other, then you have conflict and things like that. And I saw the possibility of Bitcoin being a neutral, open financial network that everybody around the world can access, regardless of your gender, of your color, of your status, or the wealth you have already. And that was basically the thing that blew my mind, and I thought that's interesting.
Well, I love that, and obviously the word fairness clearly resonates so strongly with you, and you're creating Bitcoin for fairness, and I know you just received a grant as part of Okcoin's Crypto for All program, so tell us a little bit about that. What is Bitcoin for fairness? How did you create it? And, maybe, what is your hope now that you've received this grant?
Yes, thanks to Okcoin for that, because it enables me to go out into the world, into emerging countries, into the countries where people really are disadvantaged by the financial system we have at the moment, which is a regulated system that excludes billions of people who don't have IDs, who are too far away from banks, who are too poor to be serviced by banks. And the idea for Bitcoin for Fairness came to me in the sense that I was always interested, also on my podcast, I always was telling stories about people in emerging countries. 2 years ago, I think I was one of the first, or maybe the first Bitcoin podcaster to visit Zimbabwe to research the situation there, because we always talk about Venezuela and Zimbabwe and how Bitcoin can help the people there. But I think I was the first to go there and really take a look at the situation of people, and if Bitcoin even can help them, and if how, and what are the obstacles, because I also wanted to spread the word in our communities here, in the Bitcoin communities in the Western world, about what the needs of the people are, like why are they not adopting Bitcoin in the way we do? What are the obstacles, the technical obstacles and things like that, so that we can develop Bitcoin in a way that they can use it faster or better. And I see a lot of potential there for the people to gain more sovereignty, more freedom, because Zimbabwe, for instance, is a country where people don't have basic human rights. It's not a country where you don't have free speech there. People go missing. Journalists are thrown into jail for things they write. If you write something on social media, you can get beaten up. If you are part of a new political party and the opposition, basically to the government, there's a new political party, for instance, in Zimbabwe, and they have the color yellow. And so the government forbid the color yellow, which is quite ironic, but people going on the streets with yellow shirts are getting beaten up. So it's a very difficult situation there. And therefore, I think there is even more need for Bitcoin, which is a technology, a money that enables free speech in a way, because money is speech. If you spend your money on a political campaign or you donate to a certain cause, then you express your opinion. And Bitcoin is, for me, the only financial open network that gives us this uncensorable possibility for speech. And that's why I founded Bitcoin for Fairness, to give my voice a bigger platform, and also to enable other people to join. So that was the reason for Bitcoin for Fairness.
I find your work, especially in the developing world, to be so inspiring because it's really, when you look at adoption of Bitcoin here in the US, we view it as this store of value, right? We have this common practice of having a savings account or, purchasing bonds. And so we know what it's like to take money and sort of put it away for a rainy day. But in other countries, there's really no sense of saving, right? You have to feed yourself every single day. Basic survival is your primary concern. And some of the countries I visited, including El Salvador, it's like you have to teach people the idea of a store of value or a savings account. So, did you find that as well? And how, like, what are the challenges, I guess, of onboarding people to the Bitcoin standard in countries like that, where just everyday means are challenging and you're suffering from even far worse inflation than what we have here in the US.
Yeah, exactly. It's completely. I completely agree with what you say. It's difficult for people to save. Most of the people, like in Zimbabwe, for instance, if you are the headmaster or headmistress of a school, for instance, you earn like $300 a month. And most of the times you don't get it in US dollars, you get it in Zimbabwean dollar, which are inflating all the time. So they lose value all the time. I think most people in Zimbabwe even earn less than that. And most of the times the rent is higher. So you can't save. And so I don't go there. I mean, I go there to introduce Bitcoin also as a savings instrument, of course, because I tell them, look, your Zimbabwean dollar is inflating enormously. You've lost like um, 900% in the last year, And so people understand immediately that Bitcoin, because it's scarce, it doesn't inflate. And so it doesn't lose its value because the government is deciding it prints more money. People understand that immediately. But the problem is they don't have the money to save. But it's also, and I think that's more interesting even in Zimbabwe and other African countries, it's a means of exchange or a mean of payment. Because the banking systems in most of these countries are broken. You can't compare it with Europe, for instance, where bank accounts are basically secure and people trust banks. In Africa, in many African countries, people don't trust banks at all because it's difficult to get an account. If you get one, it takes a lot of red tape. You can't send money from certain African countries to other African countries. And you also know with remittances, there's a lot of demand for sending money from abroad to African countries, to the people home. And therefore, of course, also Bitcoin has a use case. And these are the use cases where people then open their eyes and they understand how Bitcoin can help them. And basically everybody was interested when I was talking with them. um, but there are a lot of scams. So the biggest obstacle in these countries is or are scams where people get burned, lose a lot of money, and everybody knows about that. And so the first part of sharing my knowledge is always telling people that Bitcoin is an internet protocol and it's not a multi-level marketing scheme. You don't need to join Bitcoin. You can't join it because it's not a club, it's not a company. And that's the first step in building trust. And other obstacles are mostly technical obstacles because in Zimbabwe, for instance, the government is shutting down the internet sometimes. You have every day in some areas, every day there is a power outage. So for hours, you don't have power, which makes it difficult to send lightning invoices, for instance. And so there are a lot of obstacles that we also, from the developing standpoint, like in Bitcoin, need to find ideas and solutions and cooperate with the people there to get more Bitcoin adoption in these countries.
How do you explain the volatility to them? Does that make them nervous? The idea that, Bitcoin can be one value one day and it's so expensive, right? Because we have to then teach people that you could buy a fraction of it, 0.0000 whatever Bitcoin. But then on top of that, it could drop 50% and then go back up 20%. How do you handle that conversation?
Yeah, you're right. So most of the times I say you have to think long term. So you have to keep it for at least 3 to 5 years, and then you will see it goes up. So I always show the logarithmic scale of the price because there it only goes up. I mean, also always add that I can't promise anything because I'm not a scammer. So I don't promise profits, but learning from the history in the last 11, 12 years, it will most probably go up. And yeah, I understand that they most of the times want to convert Bitcoin immediately to US dollars to be able to buy goods and to have food and their basic cover their basic living costs. Yeah, so there need to be solutions. I was also researching the use of stable coins in these countries, like in Zambia and Zimbabwe, where I have been the last 3 weeks. And I was surprised that actually all people said no, they are don't using it. So there is, I think, a huge market for Bitcoin-backed stable coins, maybe. Yeah.
A lot of people view Bitcoin as this opportunity to democratize the economy or wealth, maybe get rid of some of the wealth concentration that we see in so many countries, especially here in the United States. What are your thoughts on that? And how can Bitcoin create a more egalitarian society?
Yes, I think that Bitcoin will help give more fair access to people so everybody can access this financial network, which is not possible in the classical or in the traditional financial system. I mean, take myself as an example, bonds or shares of companies were never a thing I was interested in because I always thought that's not for me. I don't have enough money to invest in a company. I know that has changed today. So in the last 20 years, it's also possible to buy shares of Apple and other stocks. But still, for me, the easier way is just to buy a fraction of a Bitcoin. And I think this access alone is democratizing wealth in a way. And that's also a point why I always say to people like the people who are disadvantaged or underserved, if you manage to buy a little bit of Bitcoin now and hold it, you will gain some sort of wealth that is proportional, very high to the things you have at the moment. To be honest, I don't think that Bitcoin will solve all wealth inequalities. It can't. Yeah, how it's just a tool, so it won't solve um, the access that people already had. Wealthy people are able to buy more Bitcoin. That's a fact. But on the other hand, billions of people can start earning Bitcoin. They can earn Satoshis through YouTube videos, through podcasting. They can take a job in the Bitcoin space and things like that. So I think it's definitely a tool to democratize access to money and to savings and to loans. Don't forget the loans. Most people don't have property, they don't have securities. But if you can manage to save a little bit of Bitcoin, you can then put it into for instance, Leden. Leden is a company that is doing loans. So you can get USDC for your Bitcoin. And then when you paid back the loan, you get back your Bitcoin. So it's a democratization of access to loans and savings, and it will help millions of people to grow their wealth and their economic situation.
Yeah, I think that's such an important message because everything seems so polarized and divided and politicized today. But when you really break down Bitcoin and the opportunities it presents for financial inclusion and to bank the unbanked, it's almost surprising that people would, peg it as one side or another, or that it's not, democratic and progressive because all the things that you're saying clearly make it completely representative of those principles and values. So I guess, I'm curious, how do you think this will also help women, especially in the global south? Because when you look at the gender disparity, I mean, this is one reason why, Okcoin has been really passionate about bringing women into the space. There's, it's like 90% men and 10% women. And in general in the world, I'm sure, those numbers continue to foster this feeling that it's not exactly equal, right? So how does that change, and how does Bitcoin for Fairness change that?
Mm. I think this will change over time. Maybe women sometimes don't have this high risk profile, which helps them also in daily life. So they don't have so many um, car accidents and things like that. So, but yes, I think this is just at the beginning. I think that people, or women, even more in the global south, are still more discriminated than we are here in Western countries. So there are many countries in Africa, for instance, where women still are not allowed to inherit. They are not allowed to own property. So they don't have any securities with which they could go to a bank and ask for a loan. From the unbanked, I think 53% of all the unbanked worldwide are women. And on the other hand, we know from studies that if you give women access to loans, and even if it's just micro loans, um, they grow their own companies. They have a higher income. They can spend more on education for the children and so on. And as you definitely also know, there is a lot of violence against women, and a lot of women are not allowed to save their own money. And with Bitcoin, they could actually, because most of the women have a phone, and they could just open up their own wallet and earn some Bitcoin and can hide it from their husband. And also in El Salvador, for instance, it's a sad reality, but women are very industrious. They work a lot. They keep up the business, like for instance, a restaurant. And but the Bitcoin wallet is owned by the husband. It's on the husband's phone. So I think that there is a lot of education that we can do, and I think Natalie, you are also doing great work here, and so that women get into Bitcoin earlier and don't wait too long, so that they can, in a way, um, get rid of this wealth disparity that we still have worldwide between women and men.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. I love narratives and just examples of people whose lives have been transformed by this technology. And when you speak about that, it makes me think of Roya Maboob, who is from Afghanistan. She was one of the first female tech CEOs there, and she had been paying women in Bitcoin since about 2013 or 2014. And because of the price appreciation, some of her female employees were able to save enough that they were able to escape marriages, escape the oppression in their country because they kept secret that they were earning this money in Bitcoin and they were self sovereign in that way. So, do you have any maybe examples or narratives where through your travels and through your work, a story, a family, a person that stands out to you?
Yeah, for instance, you were mentioning Afghanistan now. I did an interview with Feresh Deforo. She's also from Afghanistan, and she founded Code to Inspire. And she's also educating women about the use of Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies. And so these women also were able to save a little bit in Bitcoin. But adding to that, I have a story from Zimbabwe. In 2020, I met Miss Aura. She was the headmistress of St. Anne's School. And due to the pandemic, they had to shut down the school. And then we did a Bitcoin donation campaign so that she gets the money to pay the down payment for a new premise. So they got the money, they could open the school again with now 60 students, and they are the youngest, like from preschool to I think 15 or something. And now I visited them, and now they have opened up a second school. So now there are 120 students who have the possibility to learn again. And I find it fascinating that our initial payment enabled them to open the school again and to have now this prosperous business, because it's a private school. So, in a way, it's a business. And that's also the reason why Bitcoin for Fairness donated $250 to her to buy a second computer, because they only had one and now they have two. And I want to start a new donation for that, so that they can buy at least 10 computers for their 120 students. So,
Wow.
yeah, and she also told me she's now, for the first time, it's possible for her to send money to a freelancer she has in Kenya. So she's paying him in Bitcoin now.
Wow. I love these stories, don't you?
Yeah, I do, of course.
So tell me how you plan to grow Bitcoin for Fairness. How will the grant help you and what's the next step?
Yeah, so the grant helps me a lot to have this kind of security to travel the world, because if you don't have enough funds, it's not so easy to go to South Africa, Zimbabwe, Zambia. So the next travel will be South Africa, and then maybe I'm not sure if I can do Nigeria this year too. But I definitely will go to Argentina and maybe Brazil and Venezuela in later this year, at the end of the year. And the goal is there to do at least one talk and one workshop. And in Zambia, for instance, I think I did 5 radio interviews and a newspaper interview. And so I also managed to incentivize the people to build a Bitcoin only group, which I find is the best thing to do, and which also, I don't want to go there and go back again, and then it's everything is forgotten. And I want people to build their local Bitcoin communities on the ground by themselves,
Mhm.
because I only want to help, or Bitcoin for Fairness wants to help to incentivize building these groups. And so it also worked. And I'm very happy about that. Like in Zambia and Zimbabwe, there are now Bitcoin only groups on WhatsApp and Telegram. And I think the first ever Bitcoin only meetup in Zambia, in Lusaka, will be at the end of March. And I find this is a huge success, because there is a lot of altcoin
Yeah.
marketing going on there. And also people, there were young guys coming up to me and saying, "I'm a Bitcoin maxi, and I felt so alone, and I'm so happy that you came here."
Oh,
And
wow.
yes, and I want to build these connections, and I'm also trying with Bitcoin for Fairness to enable people to write their own stories on the Bitcoin for Fairness website.
Oh, great.
Um, so I found a chief editor in Zambia, and the funds from Okcoin will help me to pay them. So so we're basically building new jobs, there in the Bitcoin space.
That's so fantastic. I'm so excited about all of this. How do you combat the FUD that's created by either, political powers that don't want to see Bitcoin ascend, or these competitive forces where people are trying to get people to purchase their altcoins or NFTs. I mean, especially for people who maybe are just getting basic knowledge in Bitcoin, how do you what do you respond to to the FUD and to the
Mm,
negative headlines or the negative narratives out there that push people away from Bitcoin?
mm. So basically, the argument for Bitcoin is that it's the most decentralized, the most secure, and the first Bitcoin blockchain. Excuse me. And I also feel that it's the most secure because the development is slow. You know, a lot of altcoins are successful because they promise to be the better Bitcoin. They are faster, they are cheaper, they lose less energy, and things like that. But if people ask me that these questions, I always tell them have a counter argument, you know, and also these FUD stories. A lot of them are, of course, coming from the current incumbents, is it called? They tell the stories, like also the Digiconomist, for instance, the guy who is spreading the FUD about how much CO2 one transaction of Bitcoin is producing, which is completely idiotic. Excuse me, but it is. So I combat that with the history of Bitcoin, with the philosophy behind Bitcoin, and that it's, in my point of view, the only really uncensorable blockchain or money cryptocurrency that cannot be taken down and cannot be influenced by governments. And I think that in general that's enough to say to them, then they understand. But still, of course, a lot of trust building is needed. So the people need to find out the advantages of Bitcoin for themselves. I mean, I also have people in Zimbabwe. I met them 2 years ago. They were using Bitcoin even 5 years ago. But
Wow.
still, but still, they are trading. You know, they are traders. They didn't use the hardware wallet I gave them 2 years ago because yeah, they didn't see a reason for it, and maybe I didn't explain it well enough back then, but maybe I also didn't realize that the education is not that far, you know? Um, to trade a coin in to trade US dollars for Bitcoin, you don't need to know a lot about Bitcoin. That's
Mhm.
also something I say to people. You can use Bitcoin. You don't need to understand how it works. You just need some rules and some safety measures to use it safely. And so I think it's a combination of um, giving them reasons to believe in Bitcoin, to start using it, but then they need to experience it by themselves.
That's such a great point because there's so many things that we use every day that we don't really understand, right? Like I could never put together a car or fix a car if it was broken down, but I use a car and I appreciate the technology that a car provides me with. I don't really know how the internet or websites are coded, but I use the internet every single day, right? I don't know exactly how the internet was created and built because I could not program it. But I think it's the same with Bitcoin, and people get so intimidated for reasons they don't need to just because it's unfamiliar. And so, just out of curiosity, when you step into a room, let's say you visit a country for the first time, and it's your very first opening couple of lines about what is Bitcoin. What do you start with?
I always start with it's like cash in your pocket, but only digital, because Bitcoin has the same properties as cash. Nobody can take it away from you. It's yours and yours only. And of course, cash is inflating, so it's losing value, and Bitcoin doesn't. So that's an advantage, of course, for Bitcoin. But I think that's the best comparison in a way for people, maybe. So I also say you can send it like an email worldwide without asking anyone. It's permissionless. Also, this being permissionless is very important. So I know many people think it's not digital cash, but I think that was basically also the title in the white paper.
Yeah. Exactly. Well, what can people do to help? I think that there are a lot of folks out there who are passionate about Bitcoin, but they don't know if they can make a difference in terms of educating communities or helping, people in places like Africa. What do you say?
Well, of course, you can donate to Bitcoin for Fairness, but other than that, these people are also on Twitter and on other social media. So if they reach out and ask something, yeah, be humble, help them. Um, don't assume that they know as much about Bitcoin or altcoins like you do. Don't be toxic, be kind, and people will want to learn from you.
All right. So I've loved this conversation with you. I hope everyone checks out both your book. It's called Learn Bitcoin, right? L in apostrophe L Learn Bitcoin, right?
Exactly, because I don't want people only to learn, they can also earn
Learn it.
with Bitcoin. Yeah.
I love it. And so where can people find information on Bitcoin for Fairness?
On the website, it's bffbtc.org, ORG. And there's also a Twitter account. So that's basically where you can get information on it. And also on my YouTube channel, I will bring the videos, the interviews I've done in Zimbabwe and Zambia over the coming weeks. And yeah, that's the best place to go.
Awesome. Well, I'm really looking forward to hearing even more in depth about your background, your work, your travels when we do our coin stories in a couple of weeks in Miami. But just before we wrap up, OK Coin, we love to do something called OK, not OK. So I'm going to throw out some questions to you. They're going to be a little bit random. Some have to do with Bitcoin, others finance, others just completely random topics. So you're going to say OK or not okay. So like you like it or you don't like it, you're into it, you're not into it. Does that work?
Okay.
Okay,
Yes.
perfect. All right. An all meat diet, a carnivore diet. Okay or not okay?
Not okay. I mean, I'm a vegetarian, I have to say so.
Wow, it's so rare now to meet a vegetarian in the Bitcoin
Yes, exactly, and also say it.
space. Why are you a vegetarian?
Um, because I think it's unethical how we treat animals, and I think it's okay to eat meat. You know, I'm not opposing eating meat. I also ate meat, and but the way we treat the animals, it's an industry, and it's unethical to me, and it's also a factor of global warming and the crisis the earth is in. And so it's mostly ethical. And I think also, you know, my grandparents, they ate meat once a week when it was Sunday, and it was a special treat. And I also don't think that the hunters and gatherers thousands of years ago ate meat every day. So I'm sticking to that.
Got it. It's so interesting. I never thought that, a conversation surrounding digital money would also bleed into things like your diet but it does,
Yeah.
so many Bitcoiners that are carnivores. Okay. Terra buying $3 billion in Bitcoin for their reserves.
Oh, okay. Everybody can buy Bitcoin.
Perfect. What about billionaires going to space? Okay or not okay?
Yeah, if they want, it's okay. I mean, yeah, why not?
Now Pete Davidson's going to space too. He could stay there, for my opinion.
Who? Who? I don't know who this is.
Oh, Pete Davidson from SNL who dates all these actresses, Kim Kardashian.
Okay. Okay. I didn't want to say that, but I also thought about some can stay there.
Oh, here's a good one. I don't know if you saw this. This sort of went viral about a week ago. Bloomberg opinion telling people to take the bus and eat lentils to deal with inflation.
Okay, that's absurd. Yeah. Now, not okay.
Not okay. How about fees for carry-on bags on flights? Okay or not okay?
Not okay.
Peter McCormick quitting Twitter.
That's sad. It's okay, of course. He can tweet. He can quit it. I mean, it's. I think it's sad how people are treated on Twitter.
I know, it's so interesting the conversations that happen. Bitcoin Twitter is its own little world
Yeah,
and
yeah.
yeah. But okay, well, thank you so much, Anita. It's been such an honor to chat with you. I look forward to having a deeper conversation. And to our viewers and listeners, thanks so much for joining this week's OK Coin Live. Until next time.
Thank you. Bye bye.